All right, hello and welcome to the Kit Krysta Podcast Live.
Woo! Thank you all for coming. I was so nervous that no one would show up, and now I'm not so nervous anymore.
You've been having weeks of nightmares about walking into an empty room.
I know.
And it's not empty.
It's not empty.
So that's wonderful.
You guys are here. So excited. We already feel better.
Yes. I'd like to thank you all for coming, and I'd also like to thank the Nintendo ninjas who are in the rafters.
Yeah, don't drop down on us.
If I catch a blow dart to the neck in the middle of this, you'll know what's going on.
You'll get dragged off the stage, telling all the secrets, you know.
We got a fun show for you, and this is actually the episode that we're going to be releasing this week, which is our 30th, by the way.
Yeah, woo!
Wow.
30th episode! Made possible because of all of you guys out there supporting us, so thank you so much.
Do we have any Patreon subscribers in the
I know
audience?
we do.
Oh.
I know we do. Yes.
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 These are the people keeping the lights on, everyone. Wave to them. Say thank you because they are making it possible for us to be here. So thank you so much.
We've got a wonderful, never-before-told story that we're going to be taking you all through. PAX themed, about one Mr. Hideki Kamiya. Maybe you've heard the name.
Yeah. Maybe he's canceled you on Twitter or blocked you.
We remain unblocked.
I'm not blocked. He likes me.
By the end of today, though.
We'll see.
Might be a different story.
These stories are very, very nice.
So wholesome.
Very wholesome.
Yes.
Exactly.
And we're also going to be doing your Q&As.
Yeah, live.
Yeah.
So this is the time to ask your burning questions.
We'll let you know when the time is ready for that.
Yes.
But you've made this wonderful...
So professional.
What do we have in here? What is this?
Well, there's a little bit about us.
Who is that? That's us.
That's us.
Yes.
I mean, you guys should know us by now, but if you don't, I'm Krysta.
Now you do. And I'm Kit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys also might remember this, which is where we started, our very first episode of Nintendo Minute in 2013.
Yeah.
To the very last episode, tears in my eyes in this photo in 2022. But it's okay. It's okay. Because guess what? Because we're here.
Yes.
Even
we
better
are.
than ever.
Yeah.
Right? Woo! So we have the Kit and Krysta Podcast, which is what we're doing live here. But we also have Super Kit and Krysta 64, which is basically, you call it the spiritual successor to Nintendo Minute.
What would you call it?
I would also call it the spiritual successor.
Well, then I'm glad.
Nintendo Minute.
Some of you were asking about our street pass status. They were packed, but left in the hotel rooms.
Tomorrow, though.
Tomorrow.
No. Tomorrow. Okay, here's the plan.
Yeah.
We're going to be on the show floor tomorrow.
That's true.
I feel like that is, if anywhere, the place to get it.
Or right here.
Or I guess.
But if you see us, please say hello.
And
check your street
hold
pass.
out your 3DS.
Yeah.
There's some 3DSs out there. You'll get some.
I think so.
Good.
I agree.
Chuck Conroy will definitely street pass.
That's true.
Wonderful.
Oh, Chuck Conroy is a good friend of ours. Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
We'll do that. Yeah. So hopefully we'll have a nice update to that.
Yeah.
But we have some other cool Super Kit and Krysta 64 stuffs coming out, including a rap battle.
Splatoon rap battle.
Splatoon. Yeah. That's going to be out on Tuesday of next week.
I mean, as I've been saying, you take one look at me and you say, that guy
rap.
was born to rap, so you won't want to miss that.
Yeah.
And earlier today, moments before we walked over here,
today.
we had a special meetup with none other than...
One and only, the man himself.
You look photoshopped into this picture. I'm not sure you were actually
I'm
there.
wearing the same clothes as I am right now, so you know this is real. This is where I hold
Let's
up a
get
sign
those
with today's
deep fake
date.
people on this.
You gotta hold up that sign.
Today.
Today. It's happening.
We had a great, like 2 hours we spent with Reggie.
Yeah, we had some lunch. We caught up on all the things, and then he did a great. We did 10 burning questions for Reggie. A lot of our Patreon subscribers, you guys submitted some really amazing questions.
Yeah.
Reggie loved those, and we were able to ask a lot of those when we spent time with him today.
One question we asked, which I won't spoil his response for, was
burning question.
Today, in the year 2022, is Link still hot?
Yeah, we'll see what he says. The answer may shock me.
He declared years ago that he was. Maybe
We'll see what happens.
Maybe he's changed. I don't know.
Changed his mind.
No, but we're going to be releasing that on the Kit and Krysta podcast, not this week, but the week after.
Right.
Yeah.
So that would be a really fun show. We spent a long time
Yeah.
with Reggie just catching up, and we also wanted Reggie. We really wanted Reggie to be our first guest
Right.
on the Kit and Krysta podcast. So now that we've done that and he's been on the show, we can get other guests.
Open
too.
it up.
Yeah.
Right,
So we're
right.
excited about
Yeah.
that as well.
Mhm.
So it's gonna be great.
Great.
All right, Nintendo Storytime, shall we?
What's the next slide? I don't know.
That's what it is.
Oh, good.
Look at this baby face Kit. This
Look
is
at that.
basically like the same room, but like years and years and years ago.
Right. This was 2013. I had to go back and check.
Yeah.
You know,
Pre-Nintendo Minute.
I think it was the year that it started.
It was the year
But
that it
we were
started.
still getting it off the ground. So we didn't do anything with him related to that.
Right.
But anyway, so the Wonderful 101 was coming out on Wii U. And we had this big idea of having Mr. Kamiya come out to PAX to do a big panel to talk all about it and to promote it.
Yeah, and I think this was one of the first times Nintendo officially as a company did a panel at PAX. Before, the company was pretty
Right.
little shy about that, having
Well,
a developer out there. So
Also a little disorganized, honestly.
a little disorganized.
Well, the
yes.
truth is, we're very busy. You know, E3 is all-consuming, and the deadlines for the PAX panels are earlier than you would think.
True.
So it was always we can't think about that. We can't ask anybody about it. So by the time E3 was over, we'd missed our chance. But with this, we were all over it.
we're
The
on
one
it.
time we were on top.
And the great thing was Mr. Kamiya was just so excited about it. He
Right.
really wanted to do it, and he was really just game for anything. You know, doing the panel, doing these fan meetups. He did a whole bunch of autograph sessions with people at PAX, and he was just so kind and out there, which is great.
So we were in charge of kind of putting together this whole week for him. And really being glued to his side
Pretty much.
at all
It
times
was
for a
8 to
week.
8 a.m. to 10 p.m. because we would
Right,
work all day with him, and then we would have dinner with him as well.
right.
Yeah.
So what was your feeling going into this as he was about to land? How are you feeling about meeting him for the first time?
I was honestly a little bit nervous because I've definitely heard stories about Mr. Kamiya being a little bit intense, and he definitely, likes things a certain way, and he's very public about that. So I just wanted to make sure that he was happy with the experience. And again, this was one of our first times, if not my first time ever, doing a panel at PAX. You think I'm nervous now. I was nervous for him. I was nervous for all of us.
You weren't on the panel.
I know, but I was still nervous. And I guess I just had some anticipation,
Yeah.
wanting it to be good.
I was nervous too because he has this, tough guy, bad boy persona online. And it's wow, that's pretty different than a lot of these Nintendo developers we work with
Yeah,
who are very,
totally.
professional and very focused. I just didn't know what it would be like. Somebody else who's like that is Mr. Itagaki, who used to work
Yeah.
on Dead or Alive.
Carried a whip around.
That's Iga.
Oh, okay.
Very friendly, but carries a whip, a strange combination of things. But Mr. Itagaki, I've met him a few times and heard stories about him. He really walks the walk when it comes to that.
Tough guy persona.
Right. But we found very quickly that Mr. Kamiya is really a big softie. Right.
Yeah, he's a big sweetheart.
Yeah.
Behind the, I'm going to block you on Twitter persona.
Right. But remember, the first day, it was just him. There were some
Yeah.
people who came later, and we picked him up from the airport.
As we like to do with our developers.
It's a weird responsibility. We've done this a number of times when you end up chauffeuring them around.
You do.
I
yeah.
rented a car and drove him around for a week.
Right.
It's this is a weird responsibility for me to have. Why am I doing
And
this?
then you're really just kind of not forced, but you are not only doing your job managing his media, his media interviews and doing this panel, but you're making dinner reservations and making sure
Bodyguard.
yeah, carry his stuff. All these random things that you never think about that becomes part of your responsibility for the week.
Right. So we spent all of that first day really at the Nintendo office doing just run through after run through of his
We
presentation.
basically making the presentation that day.
Yeah, that's one of the things you may not realize about these presentations is, especially with the Japanese developers, they'll have a rough idea in mind and maybe they'll send over some assets, but it comes together
Kind
at
of
the
at the last
last
minute.
second.
Yeah.
So we literally spent a full day with him getting it in place, and he was kind of getting it mentally done, and it's great that we had that whole day because otherwise we'd have
Yeah.
nothing. We'd have nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
And you told the story about, the GDC panel. It's the exact same thing.
Right.
With the Breath of the
They-
Wild
they
developers.
basically pulled an
Worked
all-nighter
through the night
to make this
get-
incredible
We
presentation.
did not, thankfully, have to
I
pull
went
an
home.
all-nighter
Yeah.
with Mr. Kamiya, which was nice.
Right.
But definitely it was like sort of coming together the days
Yeah.
leading up to the
Yeah.
actual panel.
But by the end of the day, it felt like we had a pretty good bond going with him. Where I was
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like, okay, I could take a deep breath and think like, this guy is different
Right.
than maybe we expected him to be. I think just from a personality standpoint, this is going to be smooth sailing. He was so out there on social media. There were times that we had flagged it for the team in Japan, the marketing team in Japan, of like, are you okay with him saying this? People asking him questions about games he was making on
Right,
Nintendo
right.
platforms, and they were very evasive about answering that. They're like, well, he's just being himself. Kamiya's gonna Kamiya. Where if it was literally anybody else, they would
That
have
was
been
the interesting
squashed.
thing, where it was like, for some reason, he just got this like carte blanche.
He got a pass, yeah.
Even from the very strict Nintendo Japan
Right.
team, which usually is very buttoned up about don't say that.
Yeah.
The developers have to be perceived in a certain way. But they were just kind of like, oh well, that's just him, and I was kind of surprised by that, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I think they're afraid.
Well,
Let's be honest.
there you go. The sunglasses came
Yeah.
on, and he was like,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah. The sunglasses are always on. We found.
Always.
Yeah.
Different tints, but always on.
Yeah.
Nighttime, daytime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I've been staring at these pictures, getting ready for this so long, and I've been playing also a lot of the Cowabunga collection. It's like his head's kind of like a Ninja Turtle's head. I love it. It's
Yeah.
very unique, but
He
I
also
like it.
had some very interesting food options. Now we got to get into the story because I love this.
Well, one more thing before we get to the food, because that's kind of like the emotional centerpiece of this whole trip, believe it or
okay.
not, was his lunch choices. But the next day, this other person that you see here, JP, came in.
Yeah.
And it's hard to describe what
His
JP's
role.
role was
Yeah.
at Platinum. He kind of did it all.
Right.
He did a lot of the localization for the original Bayonetta games.
Right.
He eventually had a producer role on that game Scalebound that got canceled that they
Right.
were making for Xbox. But he was kind of Mr. Kamiya's right-hand man.
Yeah, and he also did all the translation. for
Right,
the-
he
for the
came,
panel.
his role with this panel was to come and translate.
Right.
But it was interesting with him coming the next day. Any Game of Thrones fans out there, he's kind of got a hand of the king kind of
vibe,
of
yeah.
mentality where I would ask Mr. Kamiya a question, he would answer for him. So I was like, oh no, this great bond that seemed to be forming is getting a little bit upended.
Right, by this middle person.
Right. So JP does have a big personality, but we came to figure it all out, this new dynamic.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
honestly, I love JP now. He's great. He worked on Madden for a number of years. He's since left Platinum. He's back in the US, but he is
Yeah.
a really wonderful
He's
guy.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a moment that Mr. Kamiya had a bit of a tiff, though, with poor JP.
Yeah, this was maybe day 3 or 4.
Yeah, yeah.
We've been there long enough.
Where people could let
long
their,
enough to get on somebody's
let their
nerves.
guard down a
Yeah.
little bit. Or people were, true colors, I guess, were starting
Speaking
to show
of,
through a
tomorrow's
bit.
our 3rd day at PAX together.
That's when I rage
Uh-oh,
on you.
look out. But yeah, we were meeting up outside the hotel, and that was the meetup time was 9 a.m. And 9 a.m., we're all there except for JP.
Yeah.
And it was just well, he's a couple minutes late, it's a big deal. He comes out at 9:05,
Holding those artisanal
holding a
coffee.
coffee that he had got from the coffee place next
Artisanal.
door. And boy, did he get it.
He got it. He was yelled at.
Maybe Mr.
Pretty
Kamiya.
severely.
Maybe Mr. Kamiya needed a coffee.
Well, I think that he should have just brought coffees for all of us, and that would have been problem
That would have
solved.
been friendly, yeah.
But he had his own coffee and was
Yeah.
5 minutes.
I mean, it was all in Japanese, so who knows what was
Yeah.
actually said.
But it was a little
Certain
awkward
amount of
for
pointing
us.
happening, so
A little
yeah.
awkward for us. We're we'll stay out of this.
It's one of these
Oh,
days,
oh,
okay.
No, okay.
Great. But, all right, well, let's not bury the lead here. So these lunches.
Yeah, the lunches.
He had very specific food requests around lunches. The dinners, he's like, you guys can book whatever you want.
Right.
But when it comes to lunch, he noticed that it's still here, across the street from the convention center, there is a cheesecake factory. Who knew? He's a big fan of the Cheesecake Factory. So every day,
very specific.
literally every day, we would go to the Cheesecake Factory, and he had a very specific order as well.
Right. Any guesses on what the specific order is? You'll never guess.
Fried mac and cheese ball.
Close. Close.
I mean, the menu is literally 1,000 pages long,
Right.
so I don't feel bad that you don't know.
Ew, that sounds terrible. Cheeseburger and rolls, no.
So his order of choice was the spaghetti carbonara.
Now, anyone that can down a dinner portion of spaghetti carbonara in the middle of the day and not be completely laid out for the rest of the afternoon is like a hero. In my
Now, so this is where it gets controversial, because every day, somehow we had the same waitress every day. I don't know how, I mean, this is a big restaurant. Somehow she got matched up with him. They would lock horns every day. And he would say to her, I would like to order the spaghetti carbonara, but please,
I don't want the lunch.
I don't want the
portion.
lunch portion, I want the dinner portion.
Do you understand how large that thing is? It's like a
It's like a
trough.
manhole cover
Yeah, it's
with
like
like
a trough
carbonara
of
on it.
Carbonara.
Right. And yet, every time,
She would
this
bring the
waitress
lunch
would
order.
bring the lunch portion. And this
Every
became just
time.
like
And then he would send it back.
a growing like thorn in his side until the final day.
That's right, the final day.
Something snapped
Something
between
finally
them.
clicked.
He
Yeah.
he dutifully put in the same order. And out came the dinner portion of carbonara.
But though, the best part of this is that he couldn't finish the dinner portion.
No.
So there we go. I mean, he just
No.
he's really
As the waitress came back to take the plate away, he did kind of give her like an apologetic sort of
apologetic.
gesture, like,
Yeah.
you were right. Yeah.
you've saved me 3 days of embarrassment by
Yeah.
slipping me this lunch portion. Who knew?
Right,
that she
right.
was red all along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is also, so you have a one-of-a-kind collectible that you
I
got
do.
during this week with Mr. Kamiya. Please tell us what this is.
Yeah, this is actually pretty cool, and we showed off this particular item before in a video. But the game that we were out promoting was the Wonderful 101, which is all about these characters sort of coming together to form an even more powerful entity. And when we were talking about, spending all those days with Mr. Kamiya, like, what was the inspiration behind this? Like, what gave you the idea to make a game like this? He kind of gave us a surprising answer, which was, it was a children's book called Swimmy. And the whole point of this book was that, you are this little fish, and then to defeat this like bigger enemy, you came together with all the other little fish to make a big school of fish that was more ferocious to this enemy. And that was actually the main inspiration for this like really interesting and different game mechanic in the Wonderful 101. So we were like, okay, well now we're on a mission. We have to go try to find this book.
Well, he asked for it.
Right.
Again, this is one of those like last-minute requests now
Yeah.
that he's
It's
on
like,
the
I'm gonna
ground and
hold it
thinking
up,
about this. He's
you
like, it
know.
would be great if I could have that book so I could hold it up. It's like, oh, okay, I've never heard of this book.
Right, yeah.
So we scoured the bookstores of downtown Seattle.
We did.
And you found one.
I did! Shockingly.
Yeah.
Shockingly, I found one. And we brought it back, and he was really happy to have it. And he ended up signing it for me at the end of this whole fantastic experience. And I have it still as like a little memento from that time with him. And yeah, I'll definitely keep it forever. It's really awesome. It's something that I look back on fondly and remember all the time that we spent with him.
Right.
Yeah.
So back to the prep for this panel. Again, this is a week that we had together. So
Right.
it wasn't just that first day. So now this, the second and the third day, we had the full team there. We had Mr. Kamiya, we had JP, we had all of our group.
Mm-hmm.
It was just grind out, rehearsal after rehearsal.
I
And
got
somehow,
really sick during it too.
I don't remember this, but apparently you were.
I was like,
What happened?
I had like a horrible cold, and I remember like when
See,
we
that's
were,
a bad look these days.
Now I can't do that anymore. If
You
I had
should-
any sort of sign of an
Don't do
illness,
that.
I would be sent away.
Right.
Back in 2013, no one cared if you were sick. Get to work, people. And I was like sniffing, and I remember you came up to me and you were like, "You gonna be okay? Like, do you need to go home? Do you need to leave?" And I powered through somehow. Somehow.
Wow.
You weren't looking out for me. What was your role in that?
Wow, this is a toxic workplace, I say. It's carried over to this day. Kit Krysta Incorporated. Somehow I became the moderator for this session, and I
Yeah.
don't know how that happened, because you were actually the lead for this. I
Yeah.
was just along for the ride in the carbonara.
I mean, I think it came from my extreme fear of doing panels. I don't know
Which
why.
somehow continues to this day.
I know, right?
We release a podcast, we release videos that get seen and heard by thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. It's like big deal. But we got this panel. It's like, whoa.
I get nervous. I mean, I don't know.
Let's give her a round of applause. She can do it.
Explain.
Yeah. She's doing it right now.
It's not happening right now. So I think I like suckered you into it.
You did. Yeah.
I was like, so, you want to do me a huge favor and do this? And you were very amenable to that.
And the process of like preparing to be the moderator for that is interesting because it is, I mean, it's a little bit ad hoc, but a lot of it is very like scripted.
Yeah.
So I would have this notebook that just had pages and pages of like the cues that
Right.
I would sort of serve up a topic to them, and they would run with it and answer it, and then I would move on, and it was all based on
Right,
the
right.
slides that we had.
Exactly.
But every time we would do one of these rehearsals, they would kind of go on a little detour that would send me like scrambling.
You were
I was
like
"What?"
flipping furiously
my
through
whole
this
thing
notebook.
is out of whack.
Yeah.
Right.
It was a little tough too because it was also in Japanese, so you would have like
Yeah, with
no
translation,
idea
yeah.
what he actually said until
What's going on
someone
here? I don't know.
translated it.
Right.
I think for years later, after this panel, that was always our like setup. Like you would moderate it, because
Yeah.
then you moderated like a couple other ones.
Bravely Second, I remember, was one.
Yeah,
You-
Dragon Quest
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
In a slime hat, no
in a
less.
slime hat.
Yeah, yeah.
I did gather my courage and moderate on a Numa panel one
You
time.
did it once at New York
And
Comic
I was
Con.
like very like, this
Yeah.
is the last time.
Right.
And I would run the PowerPoint back there.
That's also nerve-wracking, is running the PowerPoint.
Oh,
You don't
yeah.
want
You don't want to mess that up. And sometimes they'll go out of order, and all your slides will get all
to, don't do that.
messed up.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. So that was interesting. And then this other photo of me, we used to do. So I used to, before we started focusing on Nintendo Minute, I used to do like just random hosting things on the Nintendo YouTube.
I watched this
channel.
video this morning.
You did?
Yeah.
It's so embarrassing. It's a lot of weird, like, scripted
Roll
video.
it.
No. You can watch the video on your own time.
Yeah, we'd always it was like a recap it's like a 2-minute
Yeah.
video, cue the Access Hollywood music as you're like, hey, we're on
And
the
then,
ground
like,
at PAX,
we're
and
on,
Hideki Kamiya gave a panel about blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and then he interacted with fans. But it was always, like, very scripted and very awkward because it's not, it's meant to be.
It's not what we're best at.
Right. And,
Yeah.
and you would sit.
Someone should make a supercut of like all of these little segments that you did. That would be awesome.
Gosh, I
Yeah.
hope no one does because I had really unfortunate hair in a lot of them.
Yeah.
Is my conclusion.
So we had the panel. It went great.
It did, yeah.
Packed room. People
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed it. He had a good time. He was very smooth, very relaxed.
Yeah.
And then I remember we had a big celebratory dinner. See, this is where I don't know my Seattle neighborhoods. But it was like on the other side, so you could like see the city from there.
Yeah.
And it was just like a big celebration.
It
We
was
had-
like a seafood
Yeah,
place.
we had some other people who'd worked on the game.
I wanna say Ballard.
At NOA came out, and we just had basically a big party.
Yeah. it
And
was
then
awesome.
I dutifully chauffeured him back to I was his Uber driver. I took him back to the airport and sent him off
got him
the
back
next day.
on that plane to Japan and
Back to Osaka you go.
See you later.
Yeah. He also told us, he's like, yeah, I just had a baby a week ago. And
That's
it's like,
right.
why are you here?
How are you here?
Please
Your
go.
poor wife.
Let JP do this, yeah.
It's like
So-
I missed the first few
Yeah.
days of my new child's life by being on this
All
panel
right.
at PAX, but sure.
So we sent him back to his life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was so wonderful to spend time with him. I would love to go visit him in Osaka one of these days.
Yeah.
He can take me out for carbonara. I mean,
Well, we talked about this. So Platinum Games, their new sort of head of business. I know that's such a weird.
yeah, it's a guy from Nintendo that we
He
work
used to
with.
be the head of like third-party relations in Nintendo in Japan.
Right.
He was that was a big deal in our eyes of like, wow, this guy seemed
yeah.
like a lifer at Nintendo, and now he's working at Platinum. So I don't know if that means more of their games might be coming for Nintendo in the future,
Yeah,
or if it means
exactly.
anything. But
Right.
yeah,
He has that guy has a pretty interesting personality as well.
He's perfect
For platinum?
for platinum. Yeah.
He's perfect for platinum.
Yeah, I just need
Will
like a
fit
buddy
right
cop
in.
of him and Kamiya and
That's
Inaba, just
what I'm
like
saying.
doing zany
They
things
can
in
do
Osaka.
crazy stuff in Osaka.
Yeah.
It could be really cool.
Yeah.
And I want to be there.
It's like a takoyaki eating contest. I mean, it's basically like the Yakuza games
Exactly.
in real life.
Except for like the violence.
Except for smashing somebody with a
Like
motorcycle.
a dad
yeah.
or whatever. But anyways, yes.
Yeah.
That's our story time for today.
It is,
Very PAX appropriate.
indeed.
Yes.
We're right on time, right on schedule, so we can roll into your questions if you happen to have any. There's 2 mics, 1 on each side, so just line up, and we'll alternate sides until we're out of time.
Yeah. Don't be shy. If I have to sit up here, you have to ask a question. That's the rule, right?
You're ready, please.
First, I will say thank you so much for your Nintendo Minute and all this content. It's amazing, inspiring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The PlayStation, could you say that again?
The PlayStation Vita.
Oh, the Vita.
Oh, the Vita. Okay, with some Vita fans in the audience.
I wasn't expecting that as the first question. I am a proud Vita owner, believe it or
I was
not.
going to say, you have some experience with this.
I
I
do.
remember we played some Destiny early days. You were on the Vita.
So, PlayStation remote play has been like my white whale, to make like a Moby Dick reference,
Yeah.
for years.
You just want it to work.
I
you
just
know?
want it to work. And I did buy a Vita around the time that we were playing Destiny, specifically for that, because I was like, this is a PlayStation device. If this is ever going to work well,
This
it's
is
going to
the
work with the
time.
Vita.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it didn't work that well. So my Vita ownership was a little, I mean, I still have it.
Right.
I never really got too into the games. They kind of Nintendo'd themselves on the hardware, where they just threw all these like gimmicks into it. Like
Oh,
they,
there's a lot of
remember,
gimmicks. That's true.
They had the back touch, which remains baffling to me.
Yeah.
They threw in like all these cameras. They had like kind of their equivalent to Street Pass. I think it was called Near. It just, you know, normally you think of like a PlayStation product being like very slick, very streamlined, and this was just a little like hodgepodgey in my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never owned one. But,
Have you ever touched a Vita?
I've touched one, yes.
Okay.
At E3.
I'll let you borrow mine.
I've touched the front and the back, and it was disappointing both ways. So.
Yeah. I also thought the Sony output, like the first party games, kind of like, they didn't seem like they had that many.
Exactly.
Like they weren't properly supporting it to really get it off the ground. So I
It's
wasn't,
like early 3DS days or
I wasn't
something.
super
Yeah.
surprised when it didn't really get going, because it didn't feel like they had
Like
the great pipeline of first party games like we know Sony can make.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So remains a cult classic. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
not in the cult.
All right, we'll go to this side
Oh, this
now.
side, yes. Oh,
Oh, right. Awesome.
My question actually is more along your job description for Nintendo. I know that the personality side and the live appearances probably wasn't in your initial job description. At what point did you realize that you might be becoming like, you know, like internet personalities? Was there any resistance to that, or what was your thought process of realizing that you're starting to become like something people associate with Nintendo? And I mean, I saw your I was like, it's Kit Krysta. I was like, that has to be odd. Like, if you're not really anticipating something like that. So what was your thought process with that transition to your job?
Yeah. So funny. We were just asking Reggie the same question a few hours ago, because yeah, it is interesting.
nice humble brag.
Wait, what?
Please.
Don't interrupt me. It's not nice. Yeah, I think it. You know, it sort of happened gradually a little bit. Like we were always. We've been on the communications team at Nintendo throughout our career, and we would do more formal, sort of media-focused things like media interviews. We were also, Nintendo did have a good training program for spokespeople, media training that they would put you through. It was pretty intense, actually, to make sure you could answer all the questions in a good and company-approved way.
basically you sit down for like 20 minutes.
And someone grills you.
And a scary person asks you the scariest questions possible,
Yeah.
extremely aggressively, and they film it, and then they
film
play it back to you.
And then play it back and tell you where you made all your mistakes, and it's literally terrifying.
Right. So of course, no interview is actually that intense
Right.
or
They
crazy.
want to prepare you for the worst.
So when you do a
basically.
real interview, you're like, this is a piece of cake.
Yeah, this is like, when does this game come out? You're like, "Psh, no worries, no problem. But I think, you know, we both really just had this like desire, I think, to connect more with the community. And with Nintendo Minute, we really noticed, or before Nintendo Minute, we really noticed that there was sort of this gap that Nintendo had with the company not really having this like direct conversation with fans. And we were like having these conversations with each other, like we'd be playing games and talking about it together, or playing co-op games together. We're like, why don't we just share that with the community? Because I'm sure they're doing the same thing. You know, they just want to be relatable. So that's kind of how that transition happened. And yeah, for a long time, like the Nintendo Minute stuff wasn't really even part of like our quote unquote real jobs.
Well, I mean, to the point about a job description,
Yeah,
it was never on there.
right.
And you know, there were a lot of people that we worked with who did seem to be very focused on the job description matching, like line for line, what they did.
Right.
I think we just gave up on that a long time ago.
We did, yeah.
Because it's
we
like
really
it's
did.
like, okay, this is, you know, it's a big company, but it doesn't have a lot of people there, and people are asked to do a lot of
Yeah.
different things. You just have to be
A
flexible.
little bit more flexible.
Right.
But you know, it was a little tough sometimes, especially for you, I think, because there was definitely moments where it was like, well, do you really need to be doing this Nintendo Minute stuff?
I did
on-camera
get that
stuff?
question a few times of like,
You're-
what? Maybe your
you're-
time would be better spent
Right.
doing something else.
Yeah, yeah, and thankfully you always held fast to wanting to, you know, dedicate your time to that, and continuing to like engage with the community. But I think it was hard because it was like, this is not actually part of your 9-to-5 job or whatever.
There was another element of it where my last few years I was leading all of the NOA social media stuff. I never wanted it to look like I was calling my own number, like 10 tweets a day, Nintendo Minute, let's get it out there. Like, if anything, I would be like, don't talk about this, because I didn't want people to think like, oh, he's in this role and he's abusing his power.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
I just like,
remember that, yeah.
great, let's somebody say something bad about it.
He's gone off the deep end. Now he's crazy with
Exactly. Which could, I mean,
power.
could happen.
Could happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Now over to the other side, please.
Alright, so I'm Nick, the co-founder of the since maybe about
Oh.
and a lot of connections to people all over. I mean, Kate from Nintendo, we were making like 300 kilometers cars to our events, and it's like everyone's smiling. It was like, I see passes every day you walk to work. It's like my 5 minutes, So my question is, have you ever gone to these street passes events, and would you ever like to see if street passes being incorporated in any future Nintendo consoles and stuff?
We did work with Street Pass San Francisco, I think, for that one.
Yeah, I almost got arrested for
We
that.
almost got arrested,
Yeah.
along with the entire contingent of Street Pass.
Apparently, you need an official permit to have like a meetup for 8 people in a public space. I don't know.
Exactly. Union Square, they're
Yeah.
like tough. They're tough out there. I love all of the, you know, when the Street Pass was like at its height, having all of these cool like grassroots communities that kind of cropped up in different cities to get people together to do it. I thought it was awesome. I think it'll be great to, ever since that Street Pass video that we did, I was like, this is cool. Like, why don't we have this anymore? I kind of miss it,
I think-
you know?
I think there's a couple reasons maybe why it wasn't in the Switch. I think one, they just needed to clear, again, after so many snafus
Yeah.
of understanding like, oh, is this just the same thing? Like with Wii U and even a little bit with 3DS.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're just like, we need to have a clean break, even if this is a cool
Right.
idea. I think they also wanted to be careful of giving like dual shine to play it on your TV or play it with
Right,
you, whereas
right.
something like with Street Pass might make it feel more like
A handheld
a
thing
handheld
only.
device. So I would love to have Street Pass on Switch, but I understand some of the fundamental reasons why maybe it wasn't
Now that
there.
3DS is no longer for sale, though,
Right.
it kind of opens that door up a little bit, maybe, and perhaps in the next life cycle of Switch,
That would be great.
There would be more features.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think that would be cool to just add to the handheld part of it a bit more, or just the connection part of it a bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi there. I actually specifically have a question for Kit.
Oh.
Why don't you like Sonic games?
Oh no, you're getting called out for your disparaging of a classic.
Well, we have said that when we get to a certain subscriber number, we're doing Sonic Week, and it's nonstop Sonic games, Sonic movie reactions, Sonic podcasts. I would love to love a Sonic game. It just hasn't happened yet. I do have a bit of a mental block. I grew up deep in the Nintendo Sega
fanboy.
console wars on the Nintendo side, and I was deeply wounded by some of the things that Sega was doing at the time, which
Emotional scars.
just gave me like a lifetime.
Yeah. You had a thing at your desk that was one of the old like Sega advertisement things that
Right.
said like Sega does what Nintendo.
Genesis does what
or
Nintendo don't.
Genesis
I had
does
that
what
printed out
Nintendo.
at work.
You
Yeah.
printed it out and you put it on this bulletin board that was like right next to your computer.
Yeah.
And I asked you when I first met you, like, why do you have that there? That's so weird. And you're like, it's to motivate me to work harder for Nintendo. And I was like, okay, crazy.
Yes. Decades later,
It worked
as
though.
Sega
It
is
was
now
like
a shell
your-
of itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to hold on to
You
those
gotta hold on
old
to it.
things.
Yeah.
It's also like just the gameplay of Sonic games doesn't quite click for me. But we're saving that for that big Sonic
That's right.
Week.
Maybe
Good teaser.
this could be a pivotal moment.
It could be
for you.
cathartic.
You could change your mind
I am very
throughout
willing.
this
I am,
Sonic Week. What
I am
if you
extremely
became the
willing.
world's biggest Sonic fan?
I'm
after
very
Sonic
willing to
Week?
change my mind. I'm
mean,
very open-minded about
all
this.
of these
Yes.
timelines could come true. So
I admittedly, I haven't played every Sonic game. I've played a good number of them. If there's one people think I should try, let me know.
there you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
I remember when the OLED trailer got taken down, you were quick to point out that that was probably a licensing thing and not and anything like that. But what might be something that would be good sense
Oh, yeah. Well, there was one thing that we talked about, it was like a week or two ago. Like, Nintendo doesn't tease things on social media.
Right.
So there's a lot of time that gets into like, oh, does this mean something? And I think the specific example was this 3D render of Mario from a few years where he was eating
Like a watermelon.
watermelon.
And the caption
the-
said like
It mentioned Odyssey and Sunshine.
Sunshine, yeah.
And people were like, Sunshine port confirmed. And like that
Odyssey
was
3 coming out.
Yeah, so that was just like a very like, well, let's encapsulate the whole Mario experience into this post that we're making.
About summertime.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably fewer like indicators than you might think, because
Right.
obviously the whole point is to surprise
Surprise
you
and delight.
and not have you see it coming. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was why I had to post that about that particular instance, because I was like, people are getting really worked up about this, and it's not going to work out.
If anything, our advice to you guys is to go the other way. If you think that people are speculating on like a certain trailer or an image or something like that, it's probably not true. So I wouldn't get your hopes up.
Yeah.
Because Nintendo does not really do stuff like that in their marketing, and they really make a big effort to like manage everyone's expectations so that that doesn't happen.
We are deep in the direct
rumors.
hype cycle currently. We'll probably dig into that more next week.
Yeah,
I
revise the
haven't,
predictions.
we've been busy, so I haven't looked into everything that's out there so far. But one thing I always say, there's one person who I trust a lot. Jeff Grubb himself. I always like, okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if there was a September.
Oh, we predicted that a long
We
time
already
ago,
predicted
so there
that.
better
I
be.
wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised. But I was excited to see the potential Twilight Princess Wind Waker port. I'm personally excited about that, so we'll see
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah.
Jeff Grubb did say, though. That was one of his
Love Jeff
predictions.
Grubb. Yes.
There you go. All right.
Back to this side.
Yeah, so I saw you put the bands in your intro slide, so I wanted to ask about this Xenoblade. Do you have any behind the scenes kind of like insights on how Xenoblade went from like basically obscure series to like one of like the Switch mainstays?
Well, there was that thing called Operation Rainfall years and years and years ago,
Yeah.
which was, I think, really pivotal in shifting like the mindset of the company, honestly. And it's so rare for the company to be reacting to a big fan outpouring like that. But up until that point, I think the company was very selective of like, oh, well, this game will or won't work for the US audience.
Right.
And even if it was a good game, they, in some cases they would not release it.
Yeah.
And I think there were a couple games that were in that kind of time frame. I think The Last Story was another one,
Right.
where they did end up releasing that. And those games did well.
Right.
And I think now you see, these games
Getting
are
proper marketing.
they're
and-
released
and
day and
support.
date. The localization should not be underestimated, how much work goes into getting that ready
Yeah,
for all the markets.
Yeah.
And Fire Emblem is another example.
I was going to just bring up Fire Emblem.
please.
I think, that was another example of Nintendo, especially in the Americas, being just like super convinced that like this is a niche game with a very small fan base that's not going to, from a business perspective, not going to really, be something that they want to support. They're really focused on these like broad games for everyone, like the Wii Sports and stuff like that. So I think it was a total shock when Fire Emblem Awakening just like blew the sales numbers like out of the water.
Yeah.
But it was great because it made it so that, the company is more willing to have different varieties of games and bring some of these games over to the US market.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, we all love, our Marios and Zeldas, but it is important that the company builds new series and makes them popular.
Right.
So, those two examples along with Splatoon, like, that shows a lot of growth for the company, I think.
And really, we just need the husbandos to just keep coming. So localize the games, please. Thank you.
It's just a revolving door of
It's a revolving
husbandos.
door of husbandos, and I'm here for that. All right, back to this side.
Hello, thanks for coming out to the PAX West. First you guys on All Things Nintendo Podcast. It's been earlier this year, and then that's how I tuned in. Before I ask my question, Vita might be a good photography tool.
Oh.
I'm curious because some little hardware store share. My best friend from college got married over summer, and on top of a mountain in the middle of Pennsylvania, 90 degree heat, my phone died. All I have was a gimbal. And
Oh my goodness.
there's actually a really cool picture of there's a mansion, there's a cool picture of, my best friend, the bridal party just hanging there, the sun is setting like on a movie. I just took a picture of it, just, no real reason. I sent it to him. So then he just showed me that he made a portrait of all the wedding pictures at the moment.
From the Vita.
Wow.
That's amazing. Next time, take the wedding photos with a Game Boy camera, though.
God, yes.
That would be awesome.
I was
But
actually one down in Red River when he and I saw some years ago, and they actually had a 14 Game Boy Color, so I did a selfie, and that was kind of cool.
it's pretty cool. It has a cool look to it.
Did somebody just turn on a Game Boy?
That was my notification.
Oh,
I'm like,
What's
is the
going
photos
on?
happening now? But you had a question, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the question I have is, it's over 5 years since the Switch has been around, and now the competition's heating up. You got Steam Deck, PlayStation just announced that controller thing with the phone. Now, in this stretch now, do you think Nintendo's going to think of something to keep it alive? I mean, obviously the games, that's not going anywhere, that's going to be great, but physically, what do you think they could do in the long term?
Yeah.
well, I mean, let's not forget that, they continue to be in first place of, these NPD things that keep coming out. So it's true that there's, a lot of stiff competition, but somehow they keep coming out on top, and I think that reflects the games. I mean, we've talked about, like, we would love to do more with non-Nintendo stuff. This year, though, it's been like such a difference of how many big Nintendo games have come out versus how many
other
big,
platforms,
Sony,
yeah.
Microsoft, other platform games. So, that remains a huge,
Part of why Switch is
mark on their side.
Yeah, so popular.
Yeah, and they've talked, Mr. Furukawa's talked a lot publicly about wanting to extend the life cycle of the Switch, which I think is a good thing. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some other sort of hardware revision
Yeah.
at some point.
They're zany though, so it's like I feel like they, Nintendo typically does not like try to match one for one what the competition is doing. Like when everyone was like all about the graphics and whatever, they went like a totally different way. So I wouldn't be surprised if, the differentiator is something that is just sort of out of left field
Yeah.
and not something that the competitive systems.
Yeah, it may not be
are.
the Switch Pro necessarily.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
It may not be like 4K whatever.
Right.
So.
I mean, Nintendo does truly believe that like the Switch and the games are for everybody. So they may be thinking like, oh, well, what is this one market that we haven't really made an impact with? And is there some sort of riff on the hardware that we could give to them to finally get them to want to get it late?
Yeah. Exactly.
So very
Like
hard
the
to know.
Expanded audience versus it being
Right, like
something
think about the
super-
2DS, which was, for kids, really.
Right.
It wasn't going to break with a hinge, and there were no worries about the 3D.
Yeah.
I wonder, Switch Lite is a little bit in that direction, but is there something else that could be like that? Who knows?
Fisher Price.
Who knows?
Switch Pro.
Only Jeff
confirmed.
Grubb knows.
Confirmed. That's what it is. Just kidding. Okay.
Yeah. Thank
Of
you.
course.
If you could have like a Zelda TV show or series of movies, what would you like the story to be based around? Like a particular game or combination?
Yeah. Well, for me, I would say, I think Twilight Princess still is my favorite like storyline because it's just a little bit like, feels a little bit darker almost, a little bit more.
Twilight Princess.
Yeah, exactly. It just feels like it would be like more dramatic or something like that for like a TV show. But I do also like all of the memory segments that you got from Breath of the Wild. That gave you like more background into the characters and like especially Zelda because sometimes I feel like we don't know very much about her, like what her background is. So I think those two would probably be my pick.
Casting the Zelda movie is an idea we've talked about doing.
Yeah.
The movie doesn't exist, but we're still going to do it. I think if you were to do this, you would imagine, okay, Zelda's going to become this big new franchise. So, like, what is the purpose of this first movie? It's to get people understanding the world, understanding the characters. I would try and do something that maybe is pretty just straightforward and just establish what that is. The tricky thing with Ocarina of Time is you got time travel,
time travel is always hard
which I
to
think
do
is
in
always
a
a little
show.
dicey.
Yeah.
But that is a classic Zelda story, so I could also see it working if they found a way to nail that.
Yeah. Time travel though could be really tough to do.
Yikes.
No Majora's Mask. I think that would be really
That's the
confusing,
answer, yeah.
right? That would be
Yeah.
super confusing. How would you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Mitomo route. You didn't see this
You
coming.
didn't see this coming. Yeah, exactly. All right, on this side.
A really serious question. Would you rather fight 3 monkeys or a bear?
What kind of monkeys?
Think like Diddy Kong, like
Oh no!
Diddy Kong? Does he have a peanut shooter gun? No weapons, just fisticuffs.
just discuss, yeah.
I fight 3 monkeys. It's easier to throw them off.
I'm
of
gonna.
me, if they're on me, I can throw.
You hear crazy like the chimpanzees. Like you don't want to get mixed up with a chimpanzee.
true.
I'm gonna fight the bear and just run away. I think I might have.
Revenant. Like what
I'm
the
gonna have a
heck?
better time just running away from the bear. Maybe
I don't think you're gonna make
those
it.
monkeys are gonna
It's gonna
come
chase
after
you
me.
down and kill you. That would not
All
be
right.
good. The monkeys, I did have an experience with the monkey before. I was like
Really?
somewhere in China where they had like this mountain where a lot of monkeys live. And they don't let you bring food up there because they get like really ravenous and they'll literally come after you to like take it out of your hands. Like they have no fear at all. And somebody that I was there with had something in their pocket, like a bag of chips or snacks or something, and the monkeys like mobbed him.
Whoa.
But it was not 3 monkeys, it was like 30 monkeys. So it's a little scary. I ran away.
It's a lose-lose.
All right.
Back to this side.
Okay, over here.
I'm a big Nintendo fan. I'm no surprise, but I really like the Wii U, and I associate like a lot of memories with Wii U with you guys. I like Nintendo Land. I was wondering if you guys had any like interesting Nintendo Land stories or just like Wii U, like the beginning of the Wii U era, like interesting stories.
Yeah. Well, some of them are not very fun.
I have a not so happy memory.
There's some not so. There are some happy memories with Wii U though.
Oh, yeah.
I think we had like towards the end of sort of Wii U, and there was like that whole like influx of really good games that came out. I do remember like I had a moment where I was like, maybe we can turn this around, and I was like, oh, maybe not, but at least these games are good. But in the beginning, it was definitely tough to like find the positives because there was just so much like it was such a downer, you know.
I remember. So my sad story is the Wii U came out before Thanksgiving, and around that Thanksgiving break, I had to get together with some friends. I was like, oh, Kit has the Wii U. He's been working on it. You know, wants to show it off. So I had Nintendo Land. Everybody's excited to play. We would get into the menus, and it crashed. And it's like, oh, well, that's unusual. You know, start it up again. Everybody's still excited. We go back into the same menu. We reach the same point of that menu, crashes again. And at that point, the enthusiasm is starting to get a little bit dampened.
Yeah.
We give it one more shot. Guess what? It crashes again. And at that point, everybody's like, let's do something else.
So embarrassing.
And that was the single moment of shame that I felt you know, working on a Nintendo product or being associated with a Nintendo product because it didn't work.
Yeah.
And that stuff that, you know, that got patched like days later. But you talk about a bad first impression, and that's just like the story of that system.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but you're right. I mean, the games on that system
We're
are
awesome.
among the best.
Yeah, I have very fond memories of playing some really amazing Wii U games, and most of them are on Switch. There's some that are not. Yeah, I hope that gets brought over because there's so many people that must have missed it on Wii U.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Where are we? Here?
Back
This side?
here, yes.
Hi. So my question to you is, you guys talk about how you guys always got the announcement for Nintendo before they were officially announced. However, now that you're not with Nintendo, all of them are surprising. So I wanted to ask you, what was your favorite thing that you were surprised with Nintendo after you left?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, it's been really fun to like watch the directs and like do all the predictions and reactions and stuff because we were never able to do that before. And I would always be really sad too when I worked on a game when the game would just, the whole storyline would get spoiled. So now I don't have that problem anymore, which is really nice. But let me think. Do you have one? One announcement that you were surprised
Well,
at?
so there was one direct that happened shortly after we left that I knew most of what was in there.
I didn't know that one.
We haven't, it's been, I mean, we've had sort of these little drips and drabs over the summer. We haven't had that big like blowout though since we've left,
that's
which we've
true.
been looking forward to.
Yeah.
So I'd say I think I'm still waiting for that big pop-off moment
Yeah.
to some news.
You know what? I will pick one. I think when I woke up the morning of the first, Pokemon Scarlet Violet, and that professor looked exactly like you. And I think I went to Twitter and I was like, why are there like 100 notifications? Like, what is happening right now? And it was just like, what is going on? Because I had never seen that character, that artwork before. It was like one of the first kind of things we were learning about the new Pokemon game. And it was just so much fun and funny to see that. And then I think we did a reaction to that.
Yeah.
Pokemon Direct a little bit later that day. And it was just like, a jarring experience to see you captured in professor form. So I'm going to pick that one for now, until we get the big Breath of the Wild 2 announcement and really pop off.
Yes.
Thank you.
My question for, will there be more Animal Crossing videos? And do you know if there will be another Animal Crossing game?
Yeah. First of all, I love your whole outfit with the net. It's so cute. Oh my gosh, those Animal Crossing videos saved our lives. Honestly, that is such a special thing that we we were so desperate, I think, during that time. I think maybe all of us were feeling it. It was like dead in the middle of the pandemic, and we just had like no way of really doing anything that was normal to our lives. You know, we were suddenly, you know, working at home, like we didn't get to see anybody. We didn't get to see each other for like a really long time. And I had this like really like scared feeling like, oh my gosh, we can never make an episode of Nintendo Minute again. Like we have to shut this down because this pandemic happened, and I don't know when we're gonna go back to the office. And when we finally discovered that we were able to make something, you know, inside Animal Crossing, I remember building one of my Animal Crossing rooms to look like the Nintendo Minute studio.
That was the moment.
That was the moment where I was like, there is hope again.
We can do
in
something
the world.
really
oh my goodness.
big with this.
Yeah. And it was the response that we got on some of those videos. Like so many people in the comments were saying like, this has helped me so much. Like this is like the positivity I needed in this like kind of dark time that we were all experiencing together. I was like, this is why we do this, you know? This is why it makes it worth it to do this. Yeah, I would love to do more Animal Crossing videos.
I'm gonna say yes, we will.
Yes, Animal Crossing videos, here we go.
When? I don't know. But yes.
The holidays are always good in Animal Crossing. Those events are
Yeah.
always fun.
Yeah.
We can do something fun.
Animal Crossing rap battle in the game.
Oh, in the game? That would be awesome. We should totally do that.
Putting that out there.
We can use like the emotes from the characters. Oh, I love that.
That's my raps, yeah.
But yes, Animal Crossing videos, for sure.
Yes.
Okay, hi. Kit, who do you hope challenges you to start with Violet?
Who do I what?
Who do you hope challenges you if you're
Who do you want on your team in Scarlet and Violet? Starters.
I am going. Well, now
Fuecoco?
Yes, thank you. I forgot.
We're both going
Fuecoco. Yes, we're both
Fuecoco.
going that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fire starters. I'm always a fire
I'm
starter.
not too like tied to a type.
Yeah, I'm
for star.
score.
I did not go
I
with
was a
score
score
bunny.
bunny.
Yeah, I was on the Sobble squad. Yeah.
Um,
Fuecoco. We're both going.
yeah.
We're riding with Fuecoco.
What is your typical like team build up? You're like Machamp.
As many Machamps as I can get my hands on.
So Fuecoco and then
And
five
Machamps. Yeah.
Got
Yeah,
it.
That's
Good
my team.
stuff.
I'm very
Okay.
balanced.
All right. But yes, I'm excited. Now you have to get the one with yourself in it. So which one is that one?
That's the one I'll be getting. Yes.
Violet?
Yes.
Okay. You don't know anything about this game.
It's not out now. I don't need
All
to
right,
worry about
our
it.
other little Animal Crossing friend over there. Hi. Me too. It's okay. Oh. Which Animal Crossing villager is my favorite? I like Cherry. Cherry, the pink puppy dog. So cute.
Okay.
I was devastated when Cherry moved out and I didn't stop her. So, but that's my pick. That and Julius, the unicorn. That's a good one too.
I like the whole just kind of like bro personality type.
Oh, see, that's the type
Because
I kick out of my village.
They
I'm like, I
tend
don't
to
want
get
you here.
matched with the more like weenie body types. So I'm like, there's just
It's
some.
like a hamster that's like lifting
Yeah,
weights.
there's just some special energy that's coming out of this that I don't understand, but I just like it.
Does it remind you of you?
What?
Does it? Is that why? Do we unearth
Maybe.
something in the
Maybe.
session?
Wait,
Interesting.
wait and listen to my rap.
How are we doing on time? Oh, 2 minutes.
I think we can do it. We can do it. I have 2 more questions.
Go.
We can do it.
And I was just wondering about your thoughts about Nintendo changing relationship with the passion and the whole
Well, they've started up their thing with Panda. That you know, I think that's going to be a long-term partnership with there. But I think there's just going to be perpetual friction.
I think so too.
You know, that's a great step in the right direction, but it'll never be exactly what that community wants.
Right.
Is just kind of the truth.
Right. Yeah.
And you know, you do see a lot of Smash players are like dabbling in other games. We've talked about that. That's really interesting. You know, is that going to be a permanent shift for some of these players, or are they still going to like double up on these games? But that just seems to be the ongoing story of Nintendo in the Smash community. Is
there's
this
just going to be like this chasm.
this friction?
It's
Right.
hard to
Right.
bridge. I think being like a very strict IP place that Nintendo is, and sort of what the Melee community and some of the other Smash
And
communities
I think
want.
we'll continue to see flare-ups of certain tournaments getting shut down because they're doing things that Nintendo doesn't like that are within Nintendo's rights, but obviously upset the community.
Okay, stop talking because we had to answer this person's
Yes, last
question. 'Cause
question.
That person, the enforcer just held up the time thing.
Oh
and
my
I'm
gosh.
very nervous now.
We can do it.
Okay, go for it. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
One thing I was thinking about whenever I watch your videos is like, I'm like, look at the beacons. I imagine it's like a shocker coming from the built-in reach of like the Nintendo official channel and like Nintendo. Like, are they happy with the beacons? Like, are they feeling encouraged? Like, how do you think about that? Building your own funnel and just happy however it lands? And I'm like contemplating myself. So like, how do I keep my spirits up and any advice?
Yeah, good question. Definitely, this losing the safety net in all respects, coming from inside Nintendo was a hurdle, a challenge. Like we lost the safety net of a production team, of the huge reach that Nintendo has, but you traded for other stuff that is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, we came from a channel that had like 8.5 million subscribers, so there's going to be some sort of a drop-off. What's been interesting to us is, the podcast tends to outperform, Super Kit and Krysta 64, other types of videos, which is absolutely not what we would have expected, but has been a really fun and cool surprise.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really fun. Honestly, we're just grateful for the growth that we've been able to get so far with the support of all of you. We're going to keep growing. That's the plan. This is a long-term thing for us. We want to keep making content. And without Nintendo, we do get freedom.
Right.
A lot of creative freedom. So that has been like the sort of the biggest like fun thing for us, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't wait to keep doing more. Awesome. We did it!
The last slide. You all were an awesome audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
We've reached the end of our episode.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
We love seeing all
I'll
of
see you
you.
around the show.
All right. Bye.
Bye.